Hi, thank you for joining me on Dish With Me, Heather D. And I have a delicious sugar-free and gluten-free peach cobbler recipe for you. So stay tuned to see how I get this put together. We're going to start out with our crust. I am adding 1/4 teaspoon of vinegar to this ice water. This is going to help our crust maintain a nice flaky texture. You will not taste the vinegar, and it is going to be perfect for this. I'm using my King Arthur gluten-free flour, but you are feel free to use whatever flour that you have available. This is like I said, a gluten-free and sugar-free video for peach cobbler. I'm adding approximately 2 to 2.5 cups of it inside my food processor, and I'm also going to add about 1/4 cup of the xylitol sugar substitute. This is really good flavor for the crust to give it a little sweetness, but you do want to be careful you don't use too much of this, because you want to make sure that you be careful, because it can cause some tummy discomfort when you use too much of that xylitol sugar. I'm using 3 tablespoons of salted butter, so I don't have to add salt to my crust. And I'm just going to give this a quick blend until you see the little butter pieces have broke up really well with the flour, and that's going to help give it a nice buttery flavor to the crust. You are more than welcome to use sugar, vegan butter for this recipe to make this vegan. Now, you don't want to do like I did and spill the water, but you do want to add water to your crust as it processes until you have clumps of the dough that you see here. Once it mashes together, then you know you've added enough water. You don't want to add all of it, because if you add too much, it may not stick well when it's time to make your crust. So once I poured out my dough here, then I just kind of mashed it together, and then I folded it up and made like a little square cube here, and it's going to go inside of a Ziploc bag and placed in my refrigerator for a good 15 to 20 minutes. While it is in the refrigerator, I am getting my peaches together, and I have 3 tablespoons of my salted butter. I'm adding a little bit of allspice, about 1/8 of a teaspoon. I'm adding also about 1 teaspoon of cinnamon to this. I did add, which is not featured, I'm sorry, a 1/2 cup of the xylitol sugar and a 1/2 cup of dark agave nectar. The dark agave nectar was my replacement of brown sugar that I would normally use when I'm making peach cobbler. Now, if you have the Splenda brown sugar, feel free to use that. I bring this to a hard boil, as you see here, and then I reduce that down to a low temperature as I finish getting the rest of my crust together. After 20 minutes, I take it out the refrigerator, pour a little bit of flour onto my parchment paper, because this dough is now going to be rolled out. You want to make sure you get enough flour on both sides of the dough, so that way it doesn't stick to your parchment paper or onto the surface that you're planning to roll out. Of course, this was a little difficult trying to roll it out with one hand, so I did put the camera on pause and I finished rolling it out, and this is the square shape that I got for my 8x8 pan. Now, I placed this dough in the oven on 350 degrees and let it bake for about 8 minutes. I did take a portion of the dough, about a good 2 to 3 tablespoons, and I put some of that crust inside of the peaches, because I kind of wanted to have a little bit of a dumpling texture in that peach cobbler. Now, this is a step that is optional, and because this is a gluten-free recipe, it doesn't allow the crust pieces or the dough pieces to plump up really fat like you normally would see if you use a regular all-purpose flour. So I just, like I said, this is optional, added a few pieces to that peach cook that I had there for a little dumpling texture. Now, once they have cooked for about good 10 to 15 minutes, Then I went ahead and poured it in top of the crust that I removed from the oven. Now the top part of the crust, as you see here, will go on top of those peaches. Now please forgive me, it is not a neat crust on top, but the whole idea is just to have a topping for your peach cobbler. I brushed it with a little bit of melted butter, and then I placed it in the oven and let it bake on 350 for about 15 to 20 minutes. This is the finished product of the peach cobbler. It is so beautiful. You see some of the bubbles are still going in the corners. It has a nice brown crust. And guess what? After you let this peach cobbler rest for about 20 minutes, it is ready to serve. Now, I did not cut onto it right away. I actually ended up waiting till the next day, and then I heated it in the microwave so it can get warm again, and you can have this with some sugar-free vanilla ice cream or whatever dessert cream topping. You can add some, vegan Cool Whip or whipped cream on top. But this peach cobbler was so delicious, you cannot tell that it was sugar-free. You could barely tell that it was gluten-free with the crust. The balance of the xylitol and the dark agave nectar prevented it from having an aftertaste. So if you like this recipe, please click like, share, and subscribe. I believe you will love this. It's perfect for all of my diabetic friends out there or anyone that cannot do gluten. This recipe is perfect. I will try to put the recipe in the description box below, and this did not last longer than 2 days in my household. So like I said, if you like it, please click like, share, and subscribe, and stay tuned for more health tips and more healthy recipes coming up this new year. Thank you for watching, and God bless.